So, could you maybe talk about a little bit how your day-to-day life looks like right now?
I'm an independent, so I don't, I don't have a kind of a regular thing. It really depends what my projects are. Right now, I am running Meridian Stories. That takes up a fair amount of time, but I don't make any money on Meridian Stories. It, I would like to. I'm trying to figure that piece out. I've been doing it for 12 years, and I make money doing my international projects and live off of that. But Meridian Stories is a labor of love at this point, but I think it's way too important to be that. It should blast through into the public education system, and I'm trying to figure out a way how to do that. So I'm constantly working on that with my board, but right now it's a project by project basis, and right now it's all about this radio game show. We've never done a game show on radio before, especially I don't think in this population there's ever been anything like this. The population being the refugee camp in Kakuma, which has over 200,000 refugees. I mean, it's huge. It's in northwestern Kenya, and South Sudanese, Congolese, Ethiopian, Somalians are the primary, Burundi are the primary ethnic groups, cultural groups. This is all about entrepreneurialism and the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, and how to create a CV, and what's a business plan, and what's branding, these kinds of things. And the entire population they all want to have a kiosk. That's the economy, is walking along the very dusty streets to kiosks selling secondhand clothes or fresh produce or fruit drinks or battery charging, phone charging stations. It's an incredibly limited world. And inside of a refugee camp, which is where people get food handouts every month from UNHCR to survive. So it's this quasi handout, economy and world where it'd be very easy for people to, like, I'm a victim, I have no home, I barely get enough food, I don't have enough education, I can't do anything, so I'm not going to try. We're trying to say there's actually a lot going on here. This is now basically a small city of 200,000 people. Everyone's trying to do something. You can too. And so, but you need to understand what skill sets are in demand out there: creativity, problem solving, these kinds of things. We know about those skill sets. We know how important they are. They do not. And so we're just trying to introduce, like, if you're a creative person, if you're just even warm and personable and you like interacting with people and you can manage people well, that is a skill set. And that's something you can begin to trade on in order to get a job or start your own business. And it's a radio game show. So it's really cool. We finished recording. I just came back. And I'm just beginning to get kind of cuts of some of these games. And it's a big mystery how this is all going to kind of pull together. So in answer to your question, I bounce around between projects, and sometimes it's very, very busy, it's always very busy, because when you're running a nonprofit, there's always stuff to do. So even if I'm not kind of doing something up here, I've always got to jump back into Meridian Stories. I'm like, oh, the website what if we were to put a little startup ramp on the website, and that could be a way to get teachers, things like that.
So, you've obviously made like a huge impact towards children and the education industry throughout your career. Would you have any advice to other high schoolers who are kind of interested in what you do and pursuing what you do specifically in their careers?
I would certainly build a self-awareness around your passion. I'm very much driven by passion. So my passion involves that international piece, involves youth, and involves media, and then education. So those are my four kind of platforms. What are your three, you high school student, what are your three passions? It could be, building and rebuilding cars. It can be anything, but what are they? And more than one. Kind of, if you start kind of identifying, if it's electricity, or something more hands-on building kind of thing, fine, but cut yourself a break and look at like some tangential, passions as well, and push for those. And literally self-assessment. What are your skills? What are you good at? What do people like you for? Okay, do they like you because you're funny? Well, then humor can be an important skill set in what you bring to the table. People are going to want to work with you if you're funny, as well as smart. Within my world, what I find interesting is that nobody knows that this work is going on in this country. There's a huge amount of media for social change things happening in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in South Sudan, in where I am. The Americans are doing, the Norwegians are doing, the Swiss are doing it, the Germans, the Danes, the British. There's a lot of money that goes into this from the governments. And there are only a handful of organizations, mostly Washington, D.C. based, that do this. So creating a greater awareness that if what I do interests you, then dig into the NGO world in DC. Start looking around the UN. There are organizations that are doing this really cool work, which there's no acknowledgement. It's not an industry here in the US because it all happens out there. Those would be my two kind of pathways forward, one more generic and one specifically what I do. But it's identify your passions, push to one or two kind of aspirational passions, and then blend them together and go for it. Figure out what that, easy for me to say go for it, but figure out what are the various pathways to reach that blend.